if you
Yeah.
believe you're
Yeah.
born having to compensate,
Right.
it's going to affect how you live out who you are. What I'm trying to communicate between the lines of this, when it comes to your intrinsic value, you can't lose it. And
Yeah.
you don't even
Yeah.
need to pray to have
Believe it,
it. You
right?
don't even need to
Yeah. Yeah.
believe it. You arrive in favor and approved. And like, how might that make you live out your authentic self differently than from a place, than like with a spiritual or emotional limp?
Growing up, she heard about the end times, but they never felt so close. If showing love can make you a criminal and wearing your own clothes.
Well, hey, everybody. Today I am joined by Derek Webb. I am tempted to give a bio, but Derek, I actually would be a lot more interested if you would introduce yourself. What
Oh
what
no.
should what should we know about you? I had to put you on the
Um,
spot right out of the
well,
gate.
no, that's good. I appreciate that. What I've learned is I am complicated. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and so when it comes to trying to explain how I got here, it is a long and sordid tale. I spent the first 10 years of my career in a college folk rock band that had a lot of success in the Christian music industry that was called Caedmon's Call.
Okay.
And that was my first 10 years. For the last 25 years, I've been a solo artist. And I have tended to write spirituality into my music. So I've had a little bit of, I've still managed to hang out a little bit weirdly in the Christian music space, but I don't identify as a evangelical Christian at this point, not for 10 years. I'm still very
Okay.
interested in and care a lot about that space though, and that conversation. So it's a thing I still think a ton about, and probably more than I ever have in my life. Um, but so yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm
Yeah.
complicated. So like from a guy who had a start in the Christian music industry, and now tours with drag queens. It's been
That's a
quite a
journey.
pipeline.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, you may not know much about me. As you've been out there as an artist for a long time, I've been tracking with you a little while. I actually started in the Christian music industry as well, right out of
Okay,
college.
okay.
I directed somewhere around 30 of the Gaither homecoming videos for Bill and Gloria
Oh,
Gaither. And then
no way.
after about a year and 9 months of doing that full time, I stayed on with them freelance. And then went to work full time with Ray Boltz over in Muncie, Indiana, the
Oh
Christian
yes, okay,
recording
okay,
artist.
okay, okay. Yeah.
So it was while I was working for Ray, one day, I think it was sometime in 2003. I worked just my office was right next to his, and so when
Hmm.
Ray would get excited, and he would
Yes.
bounce around off the walls. And he encountered your album, "She Must and Shall Go Free,"
Oh my God.
and
Okay.
he was going nuts about this thing. And so
Oh
that
my
was my very
God.
first introduction to you,
Wow.
as Derek Webb.
I didn't
And
realize that I
then,
was ever on Ray's radar. I mean, I
oh
obviously know who
man,
Ray
Ray
is, and
loved your work.
I've been a fan of Ray's for a long time, and so
Yeah.
I had no idea that I was on his radar that far back. That's crazy.
Absolutely. And then I
Wow.
got hooked by Mockingbird. And so that was around the time when I was starting my deconstruction. So
Okay.
I'm an evangelical fundamentalist, charismatic, non-denominational, pew jumping, tongue talking guy. That's my past.
Okay.
And so Mockingbird was this album that, as a tool for my deconstruction, it gave me the opportunity to think about things that my closed circle wasn't giving me the opportunity to
I
think
hear
about,
that.
which is
Yeah.
I think what great art can do.
Hmm.
And I wanted you to introduce yourself because one of the things I've sort of noticed peripherally, loosely about you is that you are a person who I would almost identify as being very fluid because you've just
Hmm.
continued to change over the years through all of your art. I mean, that's how I've perceived you is through your art.
Yeah.
And here we are today to talk about your new album. And I just have seen, like you pointed out, I've been watching that. And one of the things I've come to sort of one of the ways I've shifted in my thinking about people is I've stopped thinking about people as things
Hmm.
and started thinking about people as processes.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
you fit really well into that understanding of people. And so
Man.
let's talk about this new album.
Yeah.
And if we can, kind of the approach I thought we would take is I've basically gone track by track. I've got some of the
Wow.
lyrics I want to read and sort of
Wow.
question about, and then there's other songs where I may just say, "Hey, here's this song. Tell me what you want to tell me about it." Does that feel like
Yeah.
an okay
Oh my
approach?
God. That I love it.
Okay.
I'm honored by
Okay.
it. I love it. Yeah. Thank
Well,
you.
we'll talk about the new album real quick. Introduce it. Tell us what it's called, and sort of give a little preamble to how we
Yeah.
got here.
Yes. Yeah. And I love all that language that you offered right there. And speaking of people as processes, I have always imagined my job description to be looking at the world and describing it. I think any creative person
Mm,
could adapt this if they like it. Look at the world, tell us what you see. That's the job. And I, over the last couple of years, have found I was finding it harder and harder and harder to describe the world that I was looking at. I just did not know what to say
mm,
about it. Didn't know how to talk about it, and because it's been so rough and unprecedented and strange, and especially 2024 into 2025. Um, I was wanting to work. I was wanting to write. I was wanting to contribute, and I just did not know how to do my job. And the thing is, hearing you describe the work that that you've resonated with of mine, the way that you did, I really like because I am committed to nothing except for that job description. I'm committed
mm.
to, in every moment I find myself in, with all the information I have that I bring with me into that moment, to trying to honestly describe the world as authentically as I can. I'm going to describe the world for you, which is going to speak to myself as I change, as I see the world. I'm changing as I try to describe it, and the world is changing as I see it. It's changing. I'm
Right.
changing. It's all changing. And so I like that as a process. It is a process, and that's the only thing I'm really committed to. And that's the same kind of creative ethic I've had from the very beginning, from Caedmon's Call on. I've been committed to describing the world as I see it, and which changes constantly. And yet, last year, beginning of this year, I just couldn't figure out how to do it. I didn't know what to say.
Mm,
I didn't know where to start, and I and I basically kind of liken it to, you know, the way the world has been is like that moment you're driving down the highway and the serpentine in the car breaks. That's the really bad one, and every gauge goes on in the car, and it's like everything
mm.
goes wrong at once, and the car just, it's dead. It's like everything stops working. You don't know what to do. You can't drive it. Basically, I feel like I've been looking around the world, and everywhere I look is on fire. Everything
Mm.
is on fire. And so you want to run and you want to help and but you don't even know what direction to run in because everywhere is on fire. So where do you even start? Where
Right.
do you go? That's how I have been feeling. And I'm even familiar with the language of protest. I've written a bunch of protest songs in my career. I just didn't even know what to protest first. I didn't know what it was, so it was really
Mm.
hard. And I went into this year, into 2025, thinking I really want to make a record this year, but I don't have any idea when I'll be able to do that because I don't know. That's kind of that part of the creative process I feel like is very much out of my control. I just kind of have to
Sure.
wait a little bit for the guidance and the kind of the spark. And I didn't have it. I didn't know where to start. If you look at the world long enough, most people will notice that for you, and it'll be different for you than it is for me, than it is for somebody else, that for you, there will be a fire that is taller than all the rest, the tallest fire,
Okay.
the one that you
Hmm.
can't see past to the others, the one you can't get past to the others, that you really have to bring that one down first. Then you can go on and deal with whatever else is next. And everyone, because of their life experience and their personalities and everything else, there's going to be a tallest fire that they need to start with and deal with. For
Right.
me, I realized, and this is what really opened it all up, and this is what brought us to the record. I realized that for me, there was a very clear tallest fire. And
Okay.
that for me was what I was observing as the increasingly impossible world that my friends in the queer community, and especially my family, my loved ones in the queer community, and especially queer youth, and most especially trans youth, the
Mm.
impossible world that they were having to navigate and live in, and just
Yeah.
being squeezed And it once I realized that for me personally, now I'm a straight ally. I'm a cisgender straight man and father and family member, and for me, um, that might come out of left field for some people. I am not unfamiliar with this subject matter, though. I've been writing about
Right.
especially issues of the way the church handles and deals with and really fails uh,
Mm,
LGBTQ people in general. I've been talking about this for decades. I mean, on as far
right.
back as Stockholm Syndrome, I was in trouble for writing songs about how the church treats the gay community. And my last record, had multiple songs on it that were in this territory. But for me, it's so personal that I
Yeah.
realized I need to focus all of my energy on this. Um, and once I did that, once I realized this needs to be my focus, I need to try and write songs as an ally and under the guidance and leadership of my queer friends and creatives. I need to take their
Mm,
guidance. I need to go to them and say, and I did, and I'll tell some of that story maybe as we go, but I need to take guidance and let my friends lead, but follow them in to the conversation, to the
mm,
fight, and contribute and to try to write songs that were encouraging and empowering soundtrack for queer and trans people, especially queer and trans youth, who I think are the most vulnerable. And once that was my focus, in 30 years I've done this job, it's never happened so fast. I started the month of February with no
okay.
idea yet, no songs, no nothing. And by the end of February, 3 weeks later, I had not only written, but I had recorded this entire album. I
Wow.
wrote it in a couple of weeks. I recorded it in a couple of days.
Wow.
And then my body, in other words, my body responded to the urgency. Like it was such an
Yeah.
emergency once I realized what I needed to do. It
Mm,
happened so fast, faster than it's ever happened for me in 30 years. Now, what I want to say really super briefly, and then we'll move on, is like, do I think that we need entire albums about what women are dealing with in the world right now and women's rights? Of course we do. Do I think we need
sure.
an entire
Sure.
album about the stories of people of color, immigrants,
Right.
what's happening in Palestine? Absolutely. We need whole albums about every one of these things. And I'm depending on my creative friends to work on some of that as well. If for
Mm,
them those are their tallest fires, but for me, what's happening in the queer and trans community right now is my tallest fire, and that's where I'm at.
sure.
And that's what led to
Beautiful. So the
survival
album
songs. And
is
so,
survival songs. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, and it does absolutely feel like, I mean, it feels like what you just described. You're coming in as an ally, and it is it's not a passive album. Like you're very much trying to be engaged, and you are being engaged in the ways you know how. And so, if we can, I'd love to just kind of go track by
would love it.
track. I want to call out some stuff. So, the very first track on the album is called Queer Kid.
Queer kid, where you gonna live now? Good kid, always getting kicked out of every place. You're not safe to be just who you are.
Wholesale gendercide aimed right at the kids. While their holy book says, love your enemies, and all the little children let them come unto me. Meanwhile, they're so busy changing all the rules, building up the kingdom using all the devil's tools, they forgot the way history'll show just what they did. By then, they'll be the green grass growing on the grave of that queer kid.
Mm.
So you have always had a sharp tongue, and I actually say that as a compliment. I have had many people through my deconstruction period accuse me of that, and it wasn't a compliment. I give it to you as a compliment. I'm
I have
repurposing.
received it as both. I get it as both.
Okay,
Thank
so
you for that.
there's some passion in your lyrics,
Mm.
and right out of the gate, you're swinging strong with that. Like,
Mm.
is there some anger in here for you? Is there a feeling of I don't want to say, well, let's just leave it at anger. Like, talk to me about
Right.
some of the energy that's behind some of these lyrics.
Yeah, I really appreciate you asking, and that's insightful. Yeah, that bridge, that rambling stream of consciousness bridge that's at the end of that song, Queer Kid, it was among the very first writing I did for the album. So I was like, and like I
Okay.
said, once my focus was clear, it happened really fast, which means it was bottlenecked. Like I had a lot of
Mm,
feelings about this and a lot of thoughts ready. I just hadn't really looked at them and tried to put them down on paper before. And so once I did, it came rushing out really. And that bridge of that song is among, it's maybe some of the first writing I did for the album. And I remember sitting in a Kroger parking lot, like it was coming so fast. I was like trying to go in and get groceries and I had to sit in my car and write for 10 minutes. And among the first things I wrote was at the beginning of that same bridge, even the president is treating you like a bad stepdad, thinking
Right.
everything that makes you different makes him look bad. And maybe there's a
Right.
law that'll squeeze you so tight, it'll make you hate your body, give up the fight and just die. So why don't they call it
Mm.
what it is? Wholesale gendercide aimed right at the kids. And then and so,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been watching my loved ones and their
Mm.
experience of their own lives under these circumstances. That song came from a literal conversation I had with a loved one the day after Trump was reelected,
Okay.
going back into high school, and
Mm.
basically a conversation describing how the world felt that day.
Mm.
Just being in their bodies and being among their friends. And one of the first jokes that somebody made was like, it was just kind of an awkward silence as they were standing around that morning at school, the morning after. And one of them looked at the other and said, well, I guess we're illegal. I guess it's
Mm.
illegal to be us now.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that was, and I immediately wrote that. I was like that. I mean, like just visceral comments coming out. And I just was writing all of it down out of conversations, and, um, so yeah,
Wow.
it's frustrating. I'm obviously frustrated.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to point the finger where I see it. It's not hard to see where all of the oppressive, marginalizing, negative, really evil, in my opinion, energy is coming from and
Mm.
pursuing people to their deaths right
Right.
now.
Right.
And and
Yeah. It's
so
violent.
yeah,
It's violent.
it is violence being done, emotional violence,
Yeah.
literal violence being done.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm very affected by it. And so I think you definitely do hear that. That first song definitely comes out swinging a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, I think, and I think probably to those you're saying you're an ally to, sometimes when somebody's standing up for us, we want to hear that they mean it more than just in their clever words. Like we want
Yeah.
to have a sense that they're feeling what they're saying, and so
Yeah. Well,
I commend you for putting
Well,
that in
and
there. Yeah.
thank you for that. I mean, I'm just thinking like if that's how I feel about it, and
Right.
again, this is not even
Absolutely.
intrinsically my fight. I'm just observing it.
Right. Right.
I'm secondary mad about it. Imagine, and I know from from conversations and living my life with friends and family who are at the business
Yeah.
end of it, but like the anger, the fear, the frustration, you know, is next
Yeah.
level for my friend. So I mean, so I know what I'm feeling, but it's
Yeah.
nothing compared to what my actual family and my loved ones and my friends and my community are feeling. Nothing in
Agreed.
comparison.
And it's just so easy to see when you look at me. Oh, I can read that energy and your secrets written on your face.
You got to draw away the fire from your friends. All it takes is a little bit of nail polish. The best threats always self-identify when you know a trick that always draws the eye. Talk about nail polish. You wear nail polish, and
Yeah.
you've got this song about nail polish. I have kind of an understanding of this, but I don't think that everybody does. So what's
Yeah.
kind of the idea here?
Yeah. It's a question I get because I'm, again, as a straight cisgender man, like why do I tend to keep my nails painted? And there's a reason, obviously. And so I thought, why not address it this is a perfect place for me to address this. Um, and there's a few important reasons. One of which is, well, no, I'll just say the primary reason, and the one that is highlighted in this song is what I have learned over years is that when I am with my friends and my loved ones in public,
Hmm.
my queer friends and loved ones in public, I have found that something as simple as having your nails painted
Yeah.
um, is a tremendous early warning system. Because what happens
Okay.
is when I walk into a room being me and having my nails polished. It's just something as simple as that. I immediately receive, I see and get all the side eye from that room from every potentially unsafe person in that space.
Right.
They look right at me and I get their energy. They give it to me. You cannot help but out yourself as an unsafe
Right.
person when you see someone who is in any way, even subtly, passively challenging gender conventions or binaries. You can't help yourself. You just like, and you know it immediately. You get it. You feel it. And
Yeah.
so for me,
Yeah.
what that tells me is I have just, thank you, everyone. Thank you. My social experiment has worked beautifully as it always does. I now know every single person to keep my eye on in this space to keep my family and my people safe. Um,
Right.
and, and, but the other thing it does that I love is, and it's really the flip side, and the song doesn't talk about it, but this is true too, is it also identifies you as a safe person potentially for people who are looking for allies in the room because it's not safe. The world is
Absolutely.
not safe. And so if something goes down, you need to know who you can depend on. And I need to know who's dangerous. I need to know who might need support. And something, again, all it takes is a little nail polish. It's like it's such a simple
It's great.
thing,
Yeah.
and yet very, very useful. So that's why I do it.
I'm with you in the fight, but my heart can't bear to count the cost for you to stay safe out in the open.
You've got this line in your body politic. Just breathing in and out is like an act of war. So please stay safe in the open. I want you free, but I need you alive.
Yeah.
That is an interesting song. It's now you're pleading with the people you're advocating for to, it seems like sort of like be careful.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I wrote this song on the first day. There was somebody in my family. It was the first day that they were going out into the world in a very public way,
Hmm.
dressed in the clothes that matched how they felt about themselves and who they are.
Okay.
And I was simultaneously, and I watched them enter the world and then out of my vision. And I was simultaneously the most proud I've ever been and the most terrified I've ever been
Hmm.
for this person.
Yeah.
And because I couldn't, nail polish and all, I couldn't be with them all the time. And
Right.
not that they need me to, to
I
protect
get
them or
it. Yeah.
something, but
Yeah. You
when you
care.
care about people,
Yeah.
you're concerned for their safety. And again, the world in 2025 is not a safe place for queer and trans people. It's not.
Right.
And the statistics, bear this out. And so and as soon as they were out of my vision is when I wrote the first line for this song that I wrote, which you just said, which was, I want you free, but I need you
Yeah.
alive. And that was the
Yeah.
first thing I wrote. And then I started to write in, and I sat in my car again, and I remember writing that first verse and saying like, it doesn't require bravery to be me, basically. To be in the world as
Right.
I am requires no
Right.
bravery. And yet I see you weighing life and death every day in your skin.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a fight for integrity because, like, for things to be integrated, integrity is when the outside matches the inside. And so for
Right.
me, it was courageous, but it was a fight for integrity because it's like someone wanting their outside to match their inside. They want to they want to have integrity. That's what the fight is. And yet it was a risk to their life to do it every day to do it. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that song is like, it's a heavy song because that is, as an ally, that is the feeling, and I feel it constantly for the people in my life.
Uh,
Yeah.
have you had any reactions to that song? In a way, it's sort of like you telling people be safe. Are any people from your life who are in that community, do they express appreciation for that message? Or is
There
there a
has
like,
been,
hey, you've overstepped?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that would not be inappropriate. I mean, because
Sure.
my friends and my family don't need me to save
Right.
them or
We're
protect
not
them.
Superman, right? Yeah.
That's right,
Yeah.
and they certainly can defend themselves, and they're strong, and they're more courageous than me. I promise you. At the end of that same
Right.
song, I will just highlight it. The lyrics are, "I could never love you more than this. whether a daughter or a son, because you are 10 times the man I'll ever be as the woman you've become.
Yeah.
And that really says it. I mean, that's what it is. And
Yeah.
so, like, all the strength and courage is not mine, it's theirs.
Right. Right.
This is just my fear. I'm just confessing my fear. I'm
Yeah.
expressing that I'm afraid for the people I love. And
Yeah.
it's mostly been like, yeah, it's been a very emotional response to this song, both in my community, my family, and also just like that's one of the ones that even as I'm doing the shows and it gets a pretty emotional response. Because I think that
Mm.
people who are either friends or allies to queer and trans folks or queer and trans folks all find themselves somewhere in that equation. And we all have to
Yeah.
acknowledge that it's because we love and care about each other and we're all feeling a lot of feelings. None of this is any of our faults. It's because of what the
Right.
world is pressing on to us. But it's like you can feel it. You can.
Oh, I was there too. It won't be this way forever.
In this song, I'm not going to give you a lyric. I'm going to just kind of reflect back. I'm hearing
Yeah.
a story about being a barista, serving coffee, and tucking a note into the sleeve of the coffee cup and handing it to a young person who you see. There's this story here. Is this a story? Did this happen to you? Was this a story you just conceived of? It's pure artistic license, or did someone tell you about this
So
experience?
right. So it's a first. This was a firsthand story of a loved one.
Okay.
And they were in a Starbucks in East Nashville,
Okay.
and they were getting a coffee, and the barista recognized something on their physical bodies
Hmm.
that they saw, that they understood and recognized apparently in their own story, the barista.
Hmm.
And it was evidence of self harm.
Okay.
And the barista saw this, knew what it was, understood about because their own story and their own experience and history with this. And they didn't draw any
Sure.
attention, but what they did was they wrote a note
Hmm.
and they folded that note in, tucked into the coffee sleeve, and handed that coffee to this person in my family, and that which they found a little later. Actually, they found this note, and the note said,
Okay.
"I was there too. It won't be this way forever." And it
Hmm.
was basically just the most profound and kind note I've ever seen in my life. I literally have it framed and in my closet. I look at it every single day. I think about it every single day.
Hmm.
And it's like that moment where for somebody, it's like you see your own story in somebody else, and
Hmm.
it gives you the opportunity for maybe some of the hardest things you've ever been through and experienced in your life to be a gift that you can give to someone else for them
Right.
to not feel alone in what they're experiencing, because you see them at a moment you've been in,
Right.
and that they maybe feel as though they can't make it through, that maybe they're not going to make it
Yeah.
through, and a lot of people don't make
Yeah.
it through. And
Hmm.
so to give a gift like that to a stranger, it was just so moving to me. And so and so that song, it's too unbelievable and sweet of a story to, and immediately right in line with the subject matter of this record.
Right.
Because that's such an unfortunate feature, especially of so many queer and trans youth. And so this example, this of this kindness, and to not miss opportunities in our lives to see the people we're interacting with and to see maybe ourselves in them, and to be willing to give that gift to
For
somebody
sure.
else at some
Yeah.
point and say, hey, I was there too, and it
Yeah.
won't be like this forever, and you can survive this, and you'll get through this, and one day you'll be healthy, and you could be happy, and you could have a whole life you can't imagine right now, and I'm proof of that, and I'm telling you that it's possible. And that's a powerful thing to give somebody, and let alone to a
Absolutely.
stranger. So it was moving.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is one of the reasons why I feel like this album, I said on Facebook earlier, it's medicine. It's like medicine because in
Mm,
addition to, I think, bringing, some more perspective to this story and all of
Yeah.
the things that music can do. It's also instructive in a way, not prescriptive, but it's giving like these ideas like nail polish, like this little note tucked in the coffee cup. It's
Hmm.
it's offering glimpses at how, like, a lot of us who identify as you say you do, we don't have our own experience to draw off of. And so until we've learned these things, until we've started
Right.
to understand ways to react, how are we supposed to know unless we go make a
Yeah.
friend? And that may be hard for some people. So I think
Right.
it's a gift that stuff is in here too.
Yeah. It's like
Um,
invitations. That's yeah,
Absolutely.
invitations. Yeah.
And it's not, and again, it's not preachy, which it could be, but I actually love that because in some ways this album is sort of, I don't want to say preachy, but it points, like you said, it points directly at the ones who are being violent. It calls things out very directly. But then on
Yeah.
the other side, where we're talking to the people that we're trying to love, the people that we're trying to understand better, it's not being pointy. It's being a little more like soft and gentle and kind of approaching with care. And I love that it's these kinds of different energies all wrapped
Yeah.
together. I think it's
I feel
really
I feel like
powerful.
it is I feel like putting like naming things. Like language is
Yeah,
powerful. Words are important. I think naming things and not only like naming people and naming sources of bad energy, but also naming and putting language on experiences that people are having is dignifying. I mean, it works in both
absolutely.
ways. And so it's like it can be both comfort and agitation, where it needs to be. To
Yeah.
put language on things can be very dignifying. And so for someone to hear language that resonates in their own story is helpful because it's dignifying. It makes them feel less alone. It makes them feel seen because clearly sees me or someone like me. They see my life experience, my lived experience, because they're describing it and I don't know them.
Right.
So they
Right.
they they seem to know something about my experience, which means my experience is not unique, and that's in a good way. That means I'm not alone. That means other people are feeling it. That means there's community. That means there's
Absolutely.
survival. That means there's, yeah. So I think that is important.
And by not telling me what to do, but just saying there's an implicit trust that, like, you actually got this. Like, I'm not saying I see you and now here let me tell you how to fix things.
Right.
It's a lot more dignifying than that because
Well, we're going to sit
really,
together.
and
We're just going to sit together.
we're going to do this together. Yeah.
Yeah.
But trust me, I know it scares the shit out of you.
It scares the shit out of me too.
After all that we've done and all that we know, muscle memory, asking to be believed, just asking to be trusted and to trust and believe.
I'm listening to this and I'm hearing this song about, people who have come from being one way, which I did a documentary film released in 2021 called What Lies Inside: Healing in the Face of Trauma. And I was facing
Wow.
PTSD, which
Wow.
unlocked childhood trauma, which unlocked, the Pandora's box. And
Mm.
one of the things I've discovered through trauma, you talked about the car seizing up and all the lights coming on, that
Yeah.
initial moment of what do I do? There's that freeze moment. I love that what you've done with this album in response, there was a freeze moment for you coming into 2025, but
Absolutely.
then you found a way to turn that into fight. I would call it fight, or just proactively engage
Yes.
in the
Yep.
ways that you can. Muscle Memory is this song that seems to me to talk about people who they've known relationship, they've known connectedness, possibly through lenses or experiences that you could describe as having been traumatizing. And
Mm.
so we become very rigid, we become not fluid, we become inflexible and hard to get along with. Then, which and that's one thing to talk about, but the
Hmm.
song does this awesome thing about going, so now it's really fucking hard to be in a current relationship as this new people that we are, with these old wounds and old triggers. One of the things
Mm.
people who experience trauma will know implicitly is that you don't necessarily ever get rid of the triggers.
Right.
The triggers are there. It's learning to live with them. It's learning to respond instead of react. It's all this
Yeah.
tough work that
Manage them in a
happens.
healthy way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And this song is like rolling around in the mud of that reality. And I love that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about where this
Oh,
came from and if
oh,
I'm
I so
missing
appreciate it.
anything there.
Well, you actually have said it so much more beautifully, and you've articulated it so well, better than I ever have when talking about this song. That like you really, really nailed it. Because that is what it's about. What's interesting is, so here's this is just, it's almost an aside. There's this crazy feature of all of my solo records that I've done. And I think somebody told me the other day, maybe I've done 12 proper commercial release solo records among other random records, but that maybe that's true. Of all of my solo records, I only make like concept records. I only really make like heavy
Mm,
themed records. I'm old, so I'm kind of old school about the album format. When I put an album out, I'm not trying to say 10 things. I'm trying to say one
gotcha.
thing 10 ways. Like I like to spend time in
Hmm.
the nuances of a thing and really like live it, stay in it, and really get into the nuance and detail. And even though I've only ever made concept records, really, on
Hmm.
in every batch of songs for every record I've ever made, there always is one random kind of odd love song that just shows
Mm,
up in the batch, and it just goes
that's
with
fair.
it just
Yeah.
stays with its siblings and it goes on the records. What's interesting, and so Muscle Memory is kind of that song for this record because it really started
Okay.
as a song. So I'm remarried, 5 years, and happiest I've ever been in my life. And it takes time to get out of old, as you said, unhealthy habits and recover from trauma and just all those things and try to not bring and impress all that onto a new and good and healthy situation. You want to kind of grow together into a new, if you're a new person coming into a new situation. And so my wife and I, and with our kids, with our teenagers, there's a line that we always say to each other. And
Mm,
sometimes these lines wind up in songs, not always, but sometimes a line that you just have said 100 times, and it's just such a true thing in your life and interaction with your immediate people. It's so true that it just gets in a song. And it's the opening song line of this song, which is, "We made a deal. We don't apologize for feeling our feelings." And we say, and like,
mm,
so when we're around, if somebody's had a really rough day, and I just know they're under resourced, it's rough.
yeah.
They had a rough day. They're out of resources. They're just not handling it well. They're not managing it well. But that's because of what and they'll say that they're so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm in such a bad mood. I'm such a grouch because I've
Mm,
had, or they're really sad. And so they're expressing their grief. And then they'll say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm like breaking down right now. What we always say, we will stop someone right there and say, no, no, no. We never, in this house, we do not apologize for feeling our feelings. Like, it is healthy. You need to feel your feelings. And it's like
yeah.
involuntary. It's like a hammer hitting your knee. You can't help but feel your feelings. You can't help
Right.
that. But now, if as a result of feeling your feelings, you behave badly to somebody and you want to make amends
Right.
for that, well, that's fine. Let's keep short receipts and let's say we're sorry to each other. But what you don't say you're sorry for, you don't add apology and shame on top of feeling angry or sad or disappointed
Right.
based on things that are external you have no control over. So we don't apologize for feeling our feelings around here. And it is interesting, just like you just drew out with what you said, the reason that this particular love song, Odd Love Song, belonged more on this record than any Odd Love Song has belonged on any of my other records, and they happen on every one, is because it also resonated with me that exactly what you said. There are people who are different people. They are in a different
Right.
point in their lives. They've learned new ways, new healthy ways of relating to each other after coming out of very unhealthy behaviors with other people. And
Right.
not always their behaviors that were unhealthy. They were subject to
Sure.
unhealthy behaviors and responses. And so we have to unlearn that. We have to go easy on ourselves, go easy on each other, and unlearn all that muscle memory that we have,
Yeah.
especially when it makes us so fearful. Because I mean, that's what that
Right.
chorus is like. I know it scares the shit out of you. It scares the shit out of me. After everything we've
Right.
been through and everything we've done and everything we've seen, and all the things that it's really hard not to be super scared. but I'm going to ask you to trust and believe me, and I'm going to trust and believe you, and let's try this thing. Let's do this together, and let's be healthy. And like that's what it is, and that applies well beyond my immediate absolute love for my wife. It applies to my relationships with a lot of my friends and a lot of my friends' relationships with their people and with their family and people who
Absolutely.
they've had to deal with. Yeah. So it really did. It extended in an interesting way beyond what the odd love song typically does on my albums.
Well, and you have this line in the song too that does this beautiful departure from like some of the root of suffering. A lot of times the root of suffering is that we're hooked or addicted or stuck on an idea about the way things should be as
Yes.
compared to the way they actually are for us.
Yeah. Wow. Yes.
And so unhooking from the expectation or the, instead of shoulding all over ourselves, it's letting that go. And you say
That's
in the
great.
song, we don't need a box top if we are the puzzle pieces. God knows how perfectly we fit. And that to me is sort of a way
Yeah.
of saying that. It's like screw the rule here, screw the prescriptive idea
Expectation
about
and
what
yeah.
this ought to be, the expectation. Let's unhook from that. We're the puzzle pieces, and if we fit, we fit, and that can be enough. I love that.
It's great. I love what you've drawn out
Love
about
it.
it. And it says so much about why I felt like it did belong. And it's my rule. I always include the odd love song, but this one did feel like it, for so many reasons, belonged in some key ways with this batch of
Yeah.
songs. And you have drawn it out much better than I'm gonna have to like go back and try to remember some of what you said
I'll send you the link.
and parrot that, yeah, after the fact.
Above you, below you, before you, behind you, in and around you, Sola Translove.
In hearing the title Sola Translove, I'm reminded of the Latin phrase sola
Yes.
scriptura, which means by scripture alone. So you've, I think, co-opted the term sola here. Like try and wrap that up for me. What? And there's two parts to Sola Translove. If we want to
Yes.
talk about both of those right now, back to back, that might make the most sense. But talk
Sure.
about these pieces.
Yeah. Sola Translove Part One, and its subtitle is Words of Meditation.
Right.
It's basically that's what it is. It's a meditation on intrinsic value. So
Yeah.
just you being born into favor, into
Yeah.
blessing, into acceptance, that you are not broken. You are there's nothing wrong with you. That you're not you don't need fixing. You don't need now. You might need to figure yourself out,
Sure.
but that does not mean there's something about you that is inherently wrong or broken. And I think a lot of people, especially people who come out of evangelical circles, can bring some of that kind of luggage with them
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
feeling inadequate and feeling like they're inherently sinful and broken and
Gee, I
unlovable.
wonder where
And
they get that message. Right.
yeah, it's literally in the sales pitch.
It's baked in. Yeah, it's baked
It is
in.
literally baked in. And but anyway, so I wanted to have a song that dealt with that. I also wanted to have a song that dealt a little bit. It's abstract. That's why it's a meditation. I'm offering some
Right.
abstract language to assign meaning to for everybody to get to do that on their own. I wanted to have some about how we can show up for each other in, let's say, chosen family. We can show up for each other and we can play roles that are outside of convention and expectation. Like if you need a mother, I could try to be your mother.
Right.
If you need a sister, I could try to be your sister. I mean, like we don't have to
Yep.
be bound to these binary expectations and descriptions. Like we have this energy in us. Like I have, we all contain multitudes. Like, you can bring that conventional femininity, that conventional masculinity. You can bring that to bear in the relationships around you at any time based on who you're in a relationship with and what their needs are and what your needs are. So I wanted to riff on that a little bit. I wanted to riff on intrinsic value a little bit. I wanted to get into a little bit of spirituality, which this record kind of generally stays away from more so than my other records. And the
For
title, to
sure.
sum it all up, yes, there is a little bit of church history here because that's part of my background. I actually have some of those solas literally on my arm. I mean, this is how
Okay.
hardcore I was at one point in my life decades ago. So I wanted to play with the words. I wanted to bring in that Latin. And sola just means
Hmm.
only, like to the exclusion of all other. And trans love, as I'm using it in this song, I'm literally using the prefix in a literal way. And so to
Yeah.
me, what I'm trying to communicate between the lines of this, when it comes to your intrinsic value, what you are never not connected to, what you cannot
Okay.
lose relationship with, is only love beyond love. Only
Yeah.
love beyond love, which is what Sola Translove says to me, means to me.
Mm.
And so this first part one is just kind of 3 verses of meditation on that and just offering a little abstract language to find yourself in a little bit and to play with a little bit
Nice.
and to just a sandbox to get into and say like try this and see how it feels. How does it feel to say
Yeah.
if you need a mother I could be your mother, if you need a father you could be a daughter, if you need a brother
Mm.
he could be your sister. I mean, and
Right.
you don't need a savior. You were born in
Right.
favor. You
Right.
you and you can't lose it. And
Yeah.
you don't even
Yeah.
need to pray to have it. It's
Right. I don't
yours.
even need you to hear this song for it to be there. It's there.
No,
I'm not giving it to
exactly.
you,
You
right?
don't even need to
Yeah. Yeah.
believe it. I think
Yeah.
this is true.
Exactly.
I believe this is true about you and about
Yeah.
us. And it
Yeah.
speaks to who you are and the strength from which you can draw to be your authentic self. And like
Yeah.
you are approved. You are approved, and you're never not approved. You arrive in favor and approved. And like, how might that make you live out your authentic self differently than from a place, than like with a spiritual or emotional limp? If you
Yeah.
believe you're
Yeah.
born having to compensate,
Right.
it's going to affect how you live out who you are and the courage or strength
Absolutely.
from which you draw. Anyway, I think I can take a moment here to speak a little bit about the second part.
You are enough. Your power is as unlimited as your imagination. You are wise.
You are not alone.
You are becoming. Forever becoming.
It's a quick, broader statement. When I first started this record, when I was like, okay, I think this is what I want to do, that moment we spoke about before, we're like, this is what I think I can contribute. I want to make a record about this for these people with this intention. The first thing, because as I mentioned, this is not intrinsically my fight.
Right.
It's not my
Right.
conversation. I don't get to come in and lead. I don't get to come in and instruct. I get to listen. I get to receive counsel. I get to receive guidance. I get to follow my queer friends, my trans friends, my loved ones, my community, and I get to take their guidance of how I can be the most helpful and supportive ally possible. Because what you don't want is allies to lead with their enthusiasm and not with
Hmm.
any preparedness and not with any plan and not thinking about what might actually help or even harm the people they most
Right.
care about. So you want to have intention about that. The first thing I did was reach out to all my friends. I explained to them, here's what I want to do. I need your help if you're willing to help me. And I asked them this. I said, if you could sit for a minute before your adolescent teenage self and you could hold that kid by the shoulders and look them in the face and you could say one thing to them that might help them, encourage them to be able to endure right now, what would that one thing for you would you
Mm.
say to yourself that could really help? What would that be? And I got all this tremendous feedback from my friends. They were
These are
so
all like the
generous.
little notes in the coffee cup, right? I mean, it's
That's
like,
exactly
what
right.
would
That's
your note
exactly
be?
right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. What would you write down? What would you slip to that queer kid? And I got all this great feedback, and it was beautiful.
Mm.
So much of that language did wind up weaved into the lyrics of so much of these songs with their blessings. And then to a few of my friends, and this speaks to this second part of Sola Translove, I was so moved by what they said, and I asked them if they'd be willing. I didn't even know what I would do with it yet, but would you be willing to
Mm.
grab your phone, hit record, and with your
Nice.
voice say that to
Yeah.
yourself? Would you say it out
Yeah.
loud? Because I think that'd be so powerful. And would you be willing to send it to me and let me maybe use it for something on the album? And I got such sweet immediate responses and got all these quick recordings from people. And what I realized is at the end of this record, it's short. It's 40 minutes long. It goes by really fast. because it's asking a
Mm.
lot for someone to sit and listen to the. But I'm thinking, if I have 40 minutes with somebody whose very life is on the line and who is
Right, right.
fighting every day to show up as themselves and to survive in the world, I thought, how you remember most what you heard last. So what do I want to
Yeah,
leave them with? And I
yeah.
thought what they need last, because it's not a typical record for me. What the last thing I need them to hear is affirmation, just an avalanche of
Yeah,
affirmation. I just want them to be
yeah.
buried under affirmation about who they are and their intrinsic value, their worth, that they need to do nothing to be worth
Mm.
everything to the world, other than be
And coming
themselves.
from people who occupy that
That's exactly
particular
right.
position.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a diversity of voices.
You
I'm not
handed
even
the
in
mic
that.
back over.
That's
Yeah,
exactly right. I'm
yeah.
not even on that song. I thought by this point you've heard enough from me. Let's hear
True.
from all kinds of people telling you what they wish they had heard from themselves when they were you.
Yeah,
And so that last
beautiful.
track is just kind of a litany and a big cacophonous harmony
Yeah.
of a lot of my friends speaking to their younger selves and giving voice of affirmation to folks. And that's the last thing we want you to hear. I mean, the last thing on the album is just an avalanche of "You Are Loved" from everybody I know, just
Yeah.
in the whole stereo space in your headphones coming at you, that you are loved. And there are people who don't hear that. They don't hear it from their families. They don't
Yeah.
hear it from anybody, and it's true. And I wanted them to know. So yeah, that's the
And
part one and
again,
part
I
two.
just feel like it's another element of how this album is exemplary. It's a model because some people are saying like, okay, I want to make this change, Derek. I want to be affirmative. I want to be a supporter. I want to
Yes,
be an ally. But they're so calcified in maybe their own
that's a
like
great
Sola
word. Yeah.
Translove is great for people who are stuck in their own religious trauma. I mean, if you can
Mm,
say to a trans person that you are okay the way you showed up, that's true for
yes,
everybody else too, right? And so
that's right.
this is again why I think this album is like medicine because it's saying these things to your target audience, but it's
Mm,
also in a very helpful way. It's allowing this other audience of people you're trying to kind of educate and also love and say like, hey,
mm,
like we're not going to fix anything if we're beating up on all the people who are still clumsy about this and don't know what to do and you're not judgmental about it. I love that we
mm,
group those two together and I
mm.
think because of time we'll have to land. We're going to skip two of your
We're
songs.
okay.
So people are just
No,
going to have
we're
to but we're
we're
still
okay
okay?
actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Look what
Dude, how is that
my
happening?
computer.
That's the Holy
I don't.
Spirit.
I don't know. And my computer does this sometimes. I don't know what's
That's
making it
awesome.
happen. Two thumbs up. We'll do fireworks.
Meanwhile, some politicians who never even met you tell you you don't exist. Even though, unlike the so-called God they say condemns you, well, there's proof of it.
Meanwhile, some politicians who've never even met you tell you you don't exist, even though, unlike the so called God they say condemns you, well, there's proof of it, because here you are showing up to a life those men could not survive even a day. Oh, if they were in your place. Obviously, it flows and feels better coming out of you as a song. But again, here's that sharp tongue, and I love how you're saying those men, like you're pointing very specifically at pretty much where this is coming from. Talk to me
Mm,
about "In Your Place" a little bit.
yeah. I honestly loved hearing you recite that. That sounded way better than when I sing it to me.
No.
Yeah. So that song was written for a trans teenager that I know, an insanely cool person, and looking at how their life works and where they are in their life right now and what they're dealing with in their life now. And it's a lot of code switching, and it's a lot of in that whole first
Mm,
verse is basically saying, you know, that you have to kind of march to all these different drums and speak all these different languages in order to fit in and hide in plain sight in your own life. And the times you
yeah.
forget to do that, the whiplash of it just can kill you.
Yeah.
And because you don't feel safe unless you stay in your place. And so I kind of repurposed this phrase a few times Because that's kind of the first verse. The second verse of it is talking about these politicians who could not survive a day if they were in your place, if they were dealing with the reality that they are putting you in. They are
Yeah.
not. Again, it kind of harkens back to to stay safe. That they are not. That you are 10 times the man that these politicians are because they couldn't survive a
Yeah.
day in your place, so to speak. And then at the end of the song, I actually was thinking of my great friend and huge leader and prophetic voice in this space, Dr. Roberto Shea Espinoza, who's a liberation theologian and a great friend of mine, a trans person who is like just a hero. And I was
Hmm.
thinking of Roberto when I wrote this last verse about a younger person not being able to kind of see where they are in their journey and not even imagining that the toughest things in their story could be the evidence of all the promise of where they could be in their lives someday, and the ideas of thriving and having chosen family, and basically saying you might not see it from where you are right now, but everyone who's gone before you, and I'm thinking of Roberto, everyone who's gone before you is proof that you
Hmm.
can be like them because they've all been in your place. So they've all been where you are and look where they are now. And isn't that inspiring? Doesn't it give you something to fight for and give you something to live for and give you something to aspire to? And so, yeah, I was just kind of, thinking about what this young friend might need to hear right now, knowing where they are, but looking at my other friends, who are somewhere they could be someday, and trying to connect these people together so they can see each other a little bit. Yeah.
I love it. It's more of that coffee cup work. This whole album, like maybe the artwork should have been the little note in the coffee cup. I love the artwork, but
Well, yeah, it's
it's
interesting
got that.
on the.
It's the note in the coffee cup over and over is happening on this album.
Yeah, well, what's cool is like on the vinyl and on the CD, on the back
Yeah.
cover, there's actually a ton of artwork, and in mixed in with the artwork there, up in one corner, I do actually include a picture of that note. That
Oh,
handwritten
cool.
note is literally on the back
Nice.
of the CD and vinyl. You can see it. The literal original handwritten note from I Was There Too
This is the one you
is
have
there.
hanging in your closet now.
It is. It is.
They twist the truth, they spread the fear to hide the lie. When the world feels dark and the path unclear, you realize, child, this may be the time to close your eyes.
So with this song, I'm obviously very interested in your ideas around this, but I'm hearing a kind of call to remember that we have the power to shut out the darkness, to refuse to listen or see or entertain the violent lies. And then there's also a point, I love where the song switches. I remember when I was first listening to it, I was almost like should Derek be telling people to close their eyes? Like there's because my brain works like other people's brains, and I'm like what is he doing here, and what is he saying, and will people appreciate this? And then as the song grows and evolves, there's a point where you're talking about like now open up your eyes, and it feels like there's a very strong sense of agency that you're pushing through this message of this song. And I'm curious if that's even close to where you're coming from with it, or what you were kind of conceiving of when you were writing this one.
Yeah. Well, I love how critically you've listened. I mean, I super appreciate that. There's nothing more meaningful to an artist or a songwriter than to have someone really listen, and
Sure.
so I super appreciate the time you spent with the songs. So this song actually came from some of that feedback I got from one of my friends that
Okay.
I was looking to guidance for this record, Ricky Brady, who is the music director here in Nashville of Grace Point Church, which is the most progressive church in town, and it's a community I've spent a lot of time with, and I actually worked at this church just a few years ago for a season. And Ricky is one of my dearest friends. Among the stuff that Ricky sent me back as his, like, this is what I would say to my young self to survive. One of the things he said that I just thought was really sweet and really powerful was he said, it's okay to close your eyes if you need to. It's okay to close your eyes.
Mm,
And it was just a really kind, like a really, like it was kind of like a take care of yourself. And
Yeah.
Even though, yes, we need to fight and we need to show up, and yes, we need to be vigilant, and yes, we need to protest, and yes, we need to, it's also okay. Like, you need to take care of
Yeah.
yourself. You need to put your own mask on first. And so it's like this moment of like, if you need to close your eyes and take deep breaths, and you need to just find yourself and center yourself and make sure that you're okay, you don't need to
Yeah.
exhaust yourself in these fights. You need to take good care of yourself. And I when he sent me this, um, this whole song just came tumbling out just from that one thing he said, that it's okay to close your eyes.
Mm.
And I started thinking, what are all of the worst things that are happening that might be reason for someone to need to close their eyes? Like, what are just
Yeah.
all the worst things I can observe that are happening? And I buried some of it in some poetry just to make it a little easier to get through it, because it's like four straight verses of pretty rough, of like, here's
Right.
everything that's going on politically, in the church, in culture, everywhere. Here's kind of what I'm seeing, and it's so much. It can be so hard and dark and overwhelming that sometimes you need to just retreat, and you need to
Yeah.
rally, and you need to resource, and you need to close your eyes, and you need to like be quiet and take care of yourself. But I was only willing to write all that because I knew that in the last verse I would turn the phrase. And these verses are kind of, there's X amount, I don't know how many, but there's X amount of lines in each verse before the recurring stanza, of child, this may be the time to close your eyes. And so in the last verse, I spend three times as much time on the last
Mm.
verse talking about all of the good things, and
Yeah.
talking about the quiet burning fuse that is igniting painters and activists and prophets and creativity and families and people opening and being receiving, and husbands and wives. And I almost get into like like language that I'm familiar with from my days of rewriting old hymns and stuff in this last triple stanza. So there's like three verses, and then I spend one verse that's by itself the length of all three of those previous verses, only with the good things. And then at the end of that, say, this may be the time to, now you can open your eyes, like see all of this, like receive and take all of this in, and let this
Yeah.
be what motivates and animates you. Yeah, it just all kind of came tumbling out when my friend Ricky sent me those lines.
I wish more art could come with this kind of like, back end understanding. And I know art, when
Yeah,
I released my film into the world, I had to overcome the fear of like, what will people think? And
right.
I
Because you can't
came to
control
grips
that. You
with the
can't. You know
idea.
what you meant, but you
It's
can't
none of my
control it. Yeah.
business. Yeah. And what happens is the art is what it was when I set it down. But as soon as it makes contact with another sentient being, a human, it becomes a new thing. And I
That's
can't
right.
possibly know what that is. And
That's
so
right.
I love that. You talk about not being a person who is sort of, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you're
Hmm.
not the one who's at risk here on this issue. You're not the one who's under the
Right.
threat. I do think, however, that over the course of your career musically, coming out of and probably even before you were putting yourself out there as a public facing musician, you have in lots of ways stood up to the
Hmm.
face of a beast of kinds, not necessarily
Hmm.
for your sexual identity, but certainly, the beast of religion, the beast of toxic masculinity and
Yes.
toxic spirituality, and all these things. And so, I do want to thank you before we wrap up, because
Hmm.
you've helped a lot of people. You helped me
Hmm.
um, by being brave in
Hmm.
front of the things that would and did and probably still would love to bite you and hurt you. And
Yeah.
I try to be brave in my ways now too. And I can honestly
Yes.
say that you are a person who has, not the only person, but you are a person who has modeled what it looks like. I understand now that it's not that you're never afraid.
Hmm.
It's just that sometimes the fear is not the biggest part of the equation. Sometimes
Right.
it's what needs to happen, and you have to stand up, and you have to say
Hmm.
what's on your heart. And I
Yeah. That
appreciate
fear is
that about you.
motivating. Well, thank you so
It
much for
is.
saying
It
so. And
is.
I mean, well, and that fear can be constructive when you use it as fuel, to do
Absolutely.
some to contribute, to try and
Yep.
help, and to try to offset with your energy. It's like judo. You take it and you
It is.
repurpose it, and you use it against the oppressive and marginalizing energies, I mean, like what I was thinking about when you were, and thank you so I mean, such kind words, and I receive them, and I so deeply appreciate hearing that. I mean, and that's what you hope. That's what you hope happens when you try to do
Sure.
work like this. But it kind of comes back. There's a line in nail polish, and you I think you mentioned it earlier, but like in every way that you can, you have to try to draw the fire away, because my friends and my loved ones have no choice. Like the fire
Right.
is focused on them. They are put
Right.
in the line of fire. And so
Yeah.
someone like me has the opportunity to stand with them in the line of fire, which
Yeah.
I do. And I do every time. Treat me the way you would treat them. Any way that I can ensure that that is happening, be it something as stupid as painting my nails or wearing a dress to the double wards.
Right.
I want to make sure there's a clear distinction. I'm always visibly standing with my friends who are being
Right.
marginalized, my friends who are being pursued. I want to stand with them in every way that I can.
Some people are going to say that's performative, but I think what's beautiful about it is like the way you're explaining it. I think there's this implicit a gotcha moment when you present as a thing that you know people are hating without rationale,
Mm.
and then it triggers the irrational hate. And then if they found out, oh well, he was just in the garb, or he was just wearing nail, like he was literally just ringing the bell, and I my mouth watered like Pavlov's dog,
Yes.
and I might be as a, you know, if somebody has a moment to reflect, and I think that's why these conversations can be important because they add so much depth to what the art already is doing. It
Yes.
gives a person a moment to say, I might be trained. I might be operating on training. It might not actually be the way I am. It might not be the way I'm supposed to be. This person might have a point. Yes, you're drawing
Mm.
fire, which gives your friends possibly a moment of reprieve. It also gives,
Right.
it's like laying down cover. But
Yes.
it also, I think, for the person who is being drawn to it, who is being sort of triggered and having this knee jerk reaction to it, it's an opportunity right then and there for the light to come on in their own
Yeah.
life, in their own mind, in their own heart, to go like, what am I made of here? Am I
Right.
actually a living, breathing, thinking
Mm.
human, or am I automatronic? And so
Yes.
I think it's cool. It's definitely provocative. I could
Mm.
see how it would piss a lot of people off, and at the same time endear a lot of other people to you. But again, and this is a way I think that I see you again as fluid, as an artist who
Mm.
doesn't just, you're not just one thing over your whole career as an artist.
Mm.
You're also not just an artist on your albums.
Mm.
You're an artist in your body. You're an artist in the world
Mm.
that you occupy, and you're using these tools
Mm.
to do the work of art. And I just think it's wonderful. And I
Mm.
celebrate you, Derek. I know we're
Well,
not here to celebrate you, but I
we're
do,
not.
and I'm grateful.
But thank you for that. And it is. I mean,
How?
performance art is an important thing. And I know that the exactly as you said, like the word performative, I mean, tends to be a pejorative term, but like
Right.
all I can do is perform it, because again, it's not intrinsically who I am. I'm a
Exactly.
cisgender straight man, and so when I wear nail polish or go in drag or in a dress or whatever I may be doing at any given time for whatever given reason, um, it is performance art. But as you said, it is provocative in that it is meant to provoke. I am doing it for that reason.
Yeah.
I understand certain things about certain people in culture, and I understand what their triggers are, and I'm intentionally tripping those wires. And the
Yeah.
reason is because it can be exactly as you very beautifully said, it can be a mirror, and it can give you an opportunity to examine how you're behaving, and
Yeah.
if that's who you wish to be, and if that's really who you are, or if that's something you've been trained, as you said, in, or something you've learned. Maybe you just need to do a quick audit of that quick trigger response and decide if that's really how you feel and who you wish to be, and I would be happy to give you the opportunity. In other words, I'm happy to trigger that for you. It's almost like a fire drill. I'm happy to pull the alarm
Nice.
to give you a chance to find out if this is really how you want to behave,
Yeah.
or not. And I feel
Right.
like, I mean, it's weird, but I kind of feel like I have a tradition of doing that on my records. Like, I like to
Certainly.
intentionally throw the trigger. I like to trip the wire to give you a
Yeah.
chance to feel how it feels to have the response that I hoped and planned for you to have. But I did it for you. I did it to give you the opportunity to sit in that feeling and decide if that's something you like or not. And if you don't, you get to change. You get to come into new information, and you get to
Absolutely.
be a different person. And isn't that a wonderful opportunity that we all have every single day? So yeah, I very
That's a
much appreciate
gift.
your words. And those are my motivations. And I proudly receive it.
You'll take
You know?
that. Okay. That's great.
I'll
That's
take
great.
it all day, all day.
So wrapping this up, Derek, just if you have any like as I mentioned, there are going to be some people who see this who go like, I want to be over there on that side with you,
Yeah.
Derek, or with you, Luke, or whoever.
Yes.
But maybe it's just like this is moment one for them. Like, what are
Yes.
steps? What are some things I can do? So I know you don't speak for everybody and there's no prescription here, but in terms of your experience and the things that you've learned, because I suspect as a fluid person, you haven't always been where you're at right now. You got there
Exactly. That's right.
somehow. How do you encourage people who are going, okay, I'm ready to start changing here? What are some
Hmm.
steps they can take to start becoming more open minded, more like an ally, these kinds of things? They probably don't have any
Yes.
trans friends or queer friends or anything like that. How do you get started? Any ideas would be, I think,
Wow.
helpful.
It's a great question, and it's definitely the right question. I mean, for me, what I have observed both in my own life and the lives of a lot of my friends is a primary and maybe most effective way that this kind of change can happen and really take root and be permanent change is for it to be very deeply personal. And the way that
Sure.
it is to have people in your life, friends, family members who in your life who you are in active relationship, intimate relationship with,
Yeah.
who basically are going to hold you accountable to the way you express your opinions. And so, if you have
Right.
certain opinions right now, and you have nobody in your life holding you accountable to those opinions, you have
Sure.
no way of knowing how that's affecting anybody. And I'm not even saying the initial move might be too much for you to imagine changing your opinions. That might be way too much for you to imagine.
Right.
There's no way I'll never feel any different about this, or whatever. I'll never decide that. Fine, 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 fine. That's fine. Don't worry about that right now. A good first step would be, and you said it, so I'll try to see if we can find a way to it. But like, you need to have people in your life who, when you express that opinion on Facebook, for instance,
Sure.
are gonna be in your life and are gonna say, "Hey, so do you have any idea how that comes off to a person who's not like you?" Like, I get
Mm,
that you're centered in your story, and your story tends to be the one centered in all of culture right now and in the world. Like, your experience of life. If you're a white, straight, cisgender person, you're centered in the narrative. You are the center of the narrative. I mean, everywhere.
for sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and do you know how that feels and sounds? Like, I know you think that you were totally justified in saying it, but in other words, you need someone to hold you to account. You need somebody who you care about, and you care about staying in relationship and having peace with and having love between. You need to have to deal with, and have to
Yeah.
reckon with what you've said and have accountability. I doubt there's anybody who
Right.
doesn't know where the queer and trans people are. Somewhere in your circle, I promise you, there
Hmm.
is a queer or trans person. It is
Right.
not the job of queer and trans people to educate you on how to be
Right.
different. That is not their job. If
Right.
you have people who love you and care about you and want the best for you and committed to you in relationship, they might be willing to
Sure.
help you in this way. And so you could go to them, and it might be meaningful to them, especially if it's not a thing they typically associated with you. If you said, "Hey, I know that these instincts are wrong and these opinions are wrong, and I don't exactly know why, I don't exactly know how to change them. Would you help me?" and
Yeah.
would you spend time with me, and could, and like have a safe person that you can talk to about this, and let them guide you, let them help you, and let them hold you accountable socially, and relationally. And over time, it will, I think, change. If you are a person who does not have any trans or queer friends, start there. Why don't you have any
Right.
trans or queer friends? You probably do, again, have those people in your immediate circles. You just apparently not a safe person for them. So they've not come to you. They've not reached out to you. They've not sought friendship with you. They've not sought relationship with you. Why is that? Maybe
Hmm.
start there and realize, like,
Yeah.
oh, I have blind spots I'm probably not even aware of, that are
Right.
keeping those people from even befriending me or being willing to even open up to me in any way, even in a casual way. A colleague might, just about what's happening in their lives and what they did over their weekend. They're just staying away from me. Why are people staying away from me? Start there. Start there. But again,
Yeah. I
like,
love that.
the best, most effective, lasting change is going to come from your intimate, personal relationships. That is going to change the way you speak. It's going to change the way you express your opinions, and over time, might even change your opinions. And wouldn't that be a great thing? So, but even if it only changes the way you express your opinions, that would be invaluable, and
Sure.
that would be a
And
great way to start.
I think if I'm tapping into my own experience with deconstructing of around toxic religious ideas, I think one
Yes,
thing that we could add to the mix here is send a private message or a text to your aunt, to your
there you
cousin, to
go.
your uncle or whatever, and just say, you could say like, do we know anybody? I have questions. Like raise your
Mm,
hand and say, I have questions, and I don't even necessarily. Or you could do it on Facebook. I mean, say, hey,
you could.
I'm not like you said, not necessarily burdening specific people with the duty to educate you, but you are allowed to raise your hand and say, I've been the kid in class who ever refused to ask a question because I was scared of
Yes,
retribution or shame or whatever.
yes,
Just go like, you know
yes.
what? I feel like I'm behind on this issue. I'm raising my hand and I'm saying if anybody
Hmm.
has insight or information that they would share with me to help me
Is willing
get
to
up
help
to
me.
speed,
Yes.
then I have found that whether you're deconstructing from toxic religious ideas or toxic masculinity or
Mm,
any issue, just humbly raising your hand, meaning it, and saying like, could someone help me? Generally, I mean, I
mm.
there's never been a time where no one was willing to respond to that,
I think that's
and so I think
insanely
that's
valuable
another
what you're
thing.
saying. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
insanely insightful what you're saying. And because what you can do is you can ask for help. You can always, exactly what you
you
said, you
can
can always
ask for
put your
help.
hand up and you can ask for help. And I think hearing you say it, what it makes me think of is that vulnerability. Like, in other words, you might need to take a risk. And
Exactly.
so you
You
might need to
probably
be,
will if you're in that spot. Yeah.
you will need to take a risk, and you will need to be vulnerable. And guess what? If you were to get on Facebook, especially if you've been living in an echo chamber of outdated and toxic and terrible ideas and opinions, if that's where you've been, and you suddenly go and put your hand up and ask for help, guess what? That might be the first time that you feel any empathy with the people who you are
Right.
trying to actively change your opinions about,
Because you're going to
because
draw fire.
they receive this every day of their lives without asking. They're not
Right.
asking anybody's opinion about who they are, and all they get is constant feedback. And like, living authentically is constant risk and vulnerability. So for you to suddenly risk a little vulnerability might be your first step towards understanding how it feels, what it feels like to be a queer or trans person in the world,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you are suddenly inviting risk and inviting violence and inviting, like, you're suddenly gonna, you might get just you might get a firestorm of people just abusing you and trashing on you in your feed, because they think this is like, what in the world are you? Have you gone woke? What kind of terrible, like, what kind of, they're going to
Right.
attack you. And that might be the best thing for you, because then you're going to be like, oh, this is ugly, and this is hurtful, and this feels awful. And this is
Yeah.
so clearly coming from a deep seated anger, apparently, on behalf of all these people who are harmed in what way by me wanting more information, who are harmed in what
Right.
way by me wanting to wear the clothes that I feel comfortable in. They are harmed in what way by me wanting to be called by these pronouns or this chosen name? In what way are they injured by me wanting
Right.
to be the person I am in my life? How are they injured and therefore so angry and reactive to this? That is so clearly something in them, and that must be how I have been appearing to everybody. And it might be
Yeah.
the best, most revelatory moment you've ever had of like, oh shit, like this is
Absolutely.
awful, and I want no part. That might be the sobering moment where you realize I want no part of this energy because now I'm
And I
feeling
think the
it
other
to
thing,
myself. Yeah,
and I think the other thing to say to that person who's like now like hearing all this and going, okay, I see you've dropped the
I don't
gauntlet.
like
The
it.
challenge has been
Yes,
issued. They may say I don't like it. I would also say like you're allowed to ask these questions. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to end up at a prescribed solution or place of understanding. You may
that's exactly
still,
right.
in the end, go, I don't understand the transgender thing. You may still
Yes,
land there. The issue is raising your hand is not saying, I'm ready to just totally change the way I believe, the way I think, the
yes,
way I feel. It's say, are you brave enough to endure enlightenment? No
yeah.
matter where you land,
That's
you
so
may
great.
end up
That's
right where
very
you
well
feel like you
stated.
left off. But
Yeah,
because I think there's also this built-in narrative that people who are trans or woke are weak. And it's like the ultimate
sure.
challenge is, well, let's talk about weak. Let's see, can you endure what happens by raising your hand and saying, I actually don't know what I'm talking about
Yes.
here and
Can you
I want to know
endure
more.
enlightenment? Can you
Can you
endure
endure enlightenment?
just possible change, potential
Just
change? Can you
yes.
can you endure it?
Yeah.
I think that's very insightful. And the thing is like, and what that makes me think of too is like, you don't even need to understand it to
Right.
treat people with respect and dignity.
Bingo.
And like, so understand, you don't have to understand what someone, how someone must think and what they must feel and how they behave and what motivates them.
Ever.
You don't have to you don't ever have to understand that to be kind and accepting and dignifying to that person. It does not require your understanding, let alone your acceptance, to be
Right.
able to love and dignify them. And so like that's a great place to
And that's
start too.
news to some people. That's big news.
Yes, it
Like, whoa,
is. Yes,
what?
it is.
I thought I
You're right.
had to be this whole other thing. Not no, not no,
Yeah,
all
everyone
a
must
good
be like
starting
me.
point. Yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
that that's great.
So I
Very helpful.
appreciate this time. We've gone way over. Derek, how can
No, no.
people find you, or what do you want people to do with this album? How can they move through
Yeah,
the world and connect with this?
yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Once you make it, everything else is out of your control. So I made it. It's
Exactly.
out. Now it's just I'm trying to steward it, and I'm obviously always asking for all and any help. For what I would love is for anyone who is hearing this to think about, just take a moment, think about people in your life who might need encouragement, who might be helped by hearing some songs that are soundtrack to empower them and encourage them. And that's what I've tried to make. And if you listen to it and you think that that's what it could be for somebody, please think of people in your life who you might want to send a link to. You might want to say, "Hey, check this out.
Absolutely.
I love you, and I think maybe this could help. This is not I love you and I want to change you. This is an I love you and I want to affirm you and I want to help and I want to support you. And I think here are some songs that I think might really bolster and help and support and make you feel seen and supported. And just think and just share it with people. I don't care that anybody even knows who I am. I mean, this record is
Sure.
unusual in that way. No one needs to be a fan of mine. No one needs to know who I am. I just would
Right.
love for the songs to be their own energy and just to go find the people who might need them. And the most valuable way that happens is one person to another person, like one to another is the most valuable thing. And so, yes, would I love people to like come to my website and buy the record on vinyl and come be a patron? And, yeah, there's all that great stuff. And that's fine. If somebody wants to do that, absolutely fantastic. Mainly, most importantly, all I really would love for people to do is just think about who might need to hear the songs and just share them with that one person. That would be
Well, and
huge.
in the same way we talked about, you might raise your hand and say, "Hey, I have questions." You could also, this could be a practical way to stick your neck out there too, is just to go like, maybe I'm saying I want to take a first step. share the album and go, I don't necessarily understand all of the world around what this album is touching on, but I do understand that this has been important to a lot of people, and I just want to share this. I mean, you could even do that. You don't have to have everything all figured out to be kind, to be loving, to make a gesture.
That's exactly right.
Like that.
And just listen to it and see if it stirs your feelings at all.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
And how you feel about, like, are you ever afraid for the people you love? Listen to Stay Safe. I bet you'll resonate. It doesn't have to be about what I wrote it about. Like, just if you can find yourself emotionally connecting anywhere, that means there is a bridge for you to be able to understand in a metaphorical way. You might not understand this, but if you can understand this is like this. That's what metaphors do. They help you realize that you do understand something that you thought you didn't, because someone likened it to something you do understand. It builds a bridge. So even just listen to it yourself and see how you feel, and then decide. But so DerekWebb.com and anywhere on socials, I'm just DerekWebb. If people want to find that anywhere you listen to music, look for survival songs. You'll find it. Share it. That would be amazing.
Thank you, Derek, so much for your time and for sharing this opportunity with me, an old fan. I hope we get to stay connected. I think this has been really cool.
I hope so too. Yeah, it was great to talk to you, Luke.
You are loved.